Sorry, this is a little bit late. I today have learned the lesson that apparently you're not allowed to illegally download movies anymore. Allegedly.
Really?
Allegedly.
Allegedly, not that I would ever do such a thing.
Right.
But if someone with access to my internet were to do such a thing.
I know.
Anyway, I'm so glad to have you guys here from the amazing, iconic organization Mythinformed, Brian and Sean. Why don't you guys tell a little bit about Mythinformed for people who maybe aren't as familiar and how it came about and everything?
Sure. Yeah, we're definitely not iconic, but
yes, you are.
In
my house, you are.
Brian, go ahead.
I don't know. It started initially. We got into it was a free thought organization that we were mostly looking at religion. So in some ways, people could call it an atheist group, although there was always religious people that had joined. And what we were trying to do is tackle the tough questions of is there a God? How do you get at the historical Jesus? How do you get at, is Muhammad a real person? Is it legend? Is Pontius Pilate a real person? That kind of thing. So mostly it was looking at that. So people would join for all kinds of different reasons. But as somewhere around the time when Donald Trump started to run for office and all of that happened, we slowly went away from religion, started talking about socio-cultural politics, because that seemed to be all the hot button issues. That seemed to be where if we need a dialogue, because really our mission statement is we want to promote viewpoint diversity with a vision of a more pluralistic society, and that we're anti-authoritarianism. So religion can be very totalitarian and very authoritarianism. I think more in the Middle East, more in Malaysia and places like that. But in the West, we're divided by politics. So what we want to do is create a discussion forum, and we've changed it. It used to be called MythCon. It was called Minds IRL. So we've changed it to Better Discourse. So we bring, so we have a live event. We try to do 1 or 2 a year where we bring people from all parts of the political perspective, not only right and left, but also, you socialist, radical libertarian, even anarchists who will actually talk. And the point is to have discussions that are meaningful, that you can actually explore the truth, learn from somebody. Instead of saying you're wrong, it's more, why do you think this way? You're free to disagree with them and challenge them. But if we can't allow people to stake out positions and hold them without immediately shaming them, how are you ever going to get to the truth?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sort of around the time that leftism sort of became the new religion. It sort of replaced whatever sort of repressive religions we've had before. This sort of became the state religion around that time.
And when we noticed that in atheism, right, Sean?
Yeah. It's well, the atheist stuff, it's interesting because they've adopted a new religion, completely, which is interesting. But it's what I'm starting to see these days, though, is conversations are hot. Conversations are hot right now. More people are talking about having these discussions because I think they're seeing how polarized it is, and rightfully so. I think a lot of people want to see people start coming back together and having these discussions. And you're starting to see some of the cracks in the ideologies. I mean, Leah Thomas, the swimmer, she won first place. I forget, was it the 200-yard, whatever it was. I think you're starting to see cracks in traditional progressives who absolutely support LGBTQ rights also can't necessarily come to terms with something like that. So you're starting to see kind of more nuanced views even amongst people that are more apolitical. So
what can't they come to terms with, Sean?
They just can't come to terms with the
reality.
Yeah, exactly. All's fair in love and war, but when people have absolute advantages over other people. And it's interesting, someone very close to me, she's very pro LGBTQ, extremely pro, and I think I know I am, Brian, I can't speak for you, but I am as well. But even she's advocating for yeah, Mikey, I'm assuming you're but even she's advocating for a trans league, and you're hearing this conversation happen more where people that are, you know, more the traditional progressives or in the somewhere in the center, they think the trans leagues makes a lot more sense for everyone. So
it's terrible. Like, I know that that's probably the best realistic scenario, but just the words "the trans league," it's just giving me like Special Olympics vibes.
Well, I mean, you know, there's men's leagues, there's women's leagues, and I don't see any issue personally why there couldn't be a trans league at different levels. It's obviously going to take time because you're going to need more participants, right?
I feel like that's got to be like, if a show like SNL were doing its job, that would be comedy gold for a sketch, the trans league.
Trans league, yeah, that'd be probably more like Dave Chappelle. SNL's too afraid to do anything edgy anymore, you know.
Yeah, I just came across the other day, I was watching clips of SNL, what it used to be in the 80s and 90s. It was so good, but I feel like that's sort of emblematic of everything now, whether it's Disney, whether it's it's like there's no subculture or any little fan and nothing that is off limits from this ideology.
Yeah. It's, and one of the things we brought up a little while ago is comedy movies. Like, what, you know, Joe Rogan actually brought this up on his podcast. He's like, you know, what's the last good comedy movie? And actually, it was kind of a challenge for me too, because I'm, you know, very into comedy, and I find myself watching the same movies from like 2014, 2015, because we just haven't had any, you know. Like,
what was the last good one? What was the
last? I had an answer for this the other day, and now I'm blanking on it. Yeah, I think maybe Good Boys. Did you guys see that?
That was the one that was Judd Apatow, wasn't it? That was the little kids.
I don't know if he was part of it because I can't stand him, so maybe I'll take it back if he was. Yeah, it was like these foul-mouthed little kids that were funny.
I believe that was Apatow. I believe, fact checking me on that, but I think what they were obviously trying to go for was like a super bad, but even that was like completely tame compared to like super bad. I think if you're going to go by years, Horrible Bosses or 22 Jump Street would probably be the last, like really, like, you know, comedy movie that would kind of go over the line. I don't know. It's a good question. Like, it was interesting. Like, if you look at the last 5, 6, 7 years, you don't see any comedy, like actual comedy movies, you know?
No, and we grew up during like such a golden age of comedy.
Yeah, 22 Jump Street was 2014, it said.
2014,
I never saw any of those. Also, hi, Maddie. Hi, Chris. Hey, Kieran. Hey, everyone. Maddie says The Hangover.
The Hangover.
Is that 09? When was Hangover 2009?
I never saw it.
Hangover was early, but Hangover 3 was the last one.
We Are the Millers. I never saw any of these. Like, it kind of all looks like one movie to me.
Yeah,
Dinner
We Are the
for
Millers
Schmucks was really good.
Hey, Grady.
That's like 2010 or 11.
What was it?
Hangover 3 was 2013. That was the last one.
I swear, I know I'm going to be laying in bed tonight at like 3 a.m. and it's going to pop in my head. It was a good one. What about The Room?
Which one?
The Room.
That was Franco. That was
dark
Franco.
Comedy. Yeah,
that was Franco, and that was right before he got canceled, right? And like, the shitty thing is, like, Seth Rogen, like that whole crew was like really good. It was Rogen, Franco. You had obviously Jonah Hill. What's the kid from Arrested Development? Michael Cera. Like, yeah, there's like really, really good comedians in that, like funny comedy movie actors. And yeah, when Rogen turned on James, that was pretty much it. You know?
Yeah, I think it's interesting too is all of those people are now super woke, so it's like none of them would even be able to make anything.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting. James is canceled, right? So he can't come back. Seth is completely woke. Jonah's kind of stayed out of it, and the newest comedy he was in was with Leonardo DiCaprio and a couple other people.
Oh, the climate change one.
Yeah, I was like, Don't Look Up. And granted, there were a couple good lines in there that Jonah had, but yeah, it was, you could tell like how safe they were playing it, you know. Yeah.
What I was gonna say is, so is this a thing that sort of first started, you feel like, in the atheist world? Because I heard that was sort of one of the first areas of woke insanity.
I mean, obviously it started at the universities first, right? But like when it gets into like clubs and in places like that, as far as like hobbyist clubs, and then you have to kind of look at atheism in the same way as you would look at like a running club or a knitting club or something like that. And yeah, that was 2011. So
Yeah,
Elevator Gate. This is so for people that don't know, there was a huge thing called Elevator Gate, and there's this woman who is a speaker. Her name was Rebecca. She's going up to her hotel room at like 4 a.m. They're in Ireland at some meeting, and then some other guy gets on the second floor, and they go up. And on the way up to the elevator to whatever floor, he says, "Hey, Rebecca, I liked your talk. Would you like to go to my room for some coffee?" Right? Which, you know what that means at like 4 a.m. That's a proposition. And then she says no. He says, okay. He gets off at his floor, and then she leaves. And nothing happens until the next day when she vlogs this and says, all right, this is what happened to me. Guys, don't do that. Guys, don't do that. And it creates a huge uproar. And like her position is, well, even though he did all the rules, like he didn't like push himself on her, he took no for an answer, but he shouldn't ask that in an enclosed space in an elevator where there's no egress. That's the idea. You can't have a bedroom in the basement without a window. It's the same kind of like thing, but you know, that
was Elevator Gate. That was 2011, and then right after that, pretty much it was.
Which one was humongous? Do you remember him?
Oh, I don't remember humongous. I just remember like that kind of transition into Gamergate and Gamergate, or was Gamergate before that, Brian?
No, that's after. It's after.
Okay.
So Elevator Gate happens, and then Richard Dawkins chimes into this huge fervor in the community and pops in with a letter called Dear Muslima. And it says, Dear Muslima, I understand that you are, you know, in your country, you know, you have to have 4 women to testify in lieu of 1 man. You have to wear a burqa. You don't have rights. You can't drive. You know, you can't do all these things when you have your period. But think about this poor Westerner. This girl was asked in an elevator if she wanted to go to coffee. Think about that, Muslima, right? This satirical, like kind of harsh criticism. And that's what really blew it up. And after that, like the atheist community wasn't quite the same. And that was always there. And it was always like, you know, this isn't a safe space for women and all of this. And then it became, this isn't safe space for Black people, LGBT, and you name it. By 2017, it was full on woke. And then I guess at MythCon, which was, you know, they thought us as, some people thought us as a free thought community. Other people thought us an atheist community. And when we invited Sargon of Akkad, Shoe on Head, and her boyfriend at the time, Armored Skeptic, to MythCon according to Conservapedia, that's what destroyed the atheist movement, because now it's split. There was an article.
You did?
There was an article that said SJWs to receive strategic platform at MythCon. Like, you know, that was the idea. They looked at it. Yeah, it was like MythCon was like a little round top that must be taken from the Confederates, you know, or that's the idea. They couldn't allow the SJWs to have a platform as MythCon. If we're allowing the anti-SJWs in, then atheism would be ruined forever. So therefore, we had to be kicked out. And that's what happened.
That is such a pet peeve of mine, too. These people who turn into the things that they claim to oppose. Like, even if it's on the anti-SJW side, I always say to, you know, when I've been doing walkaway events and stuff, at every single one, I'm always like, do not become the thing that you walked away from. That's right. And I think a lot of people forget that. By the way, though, when you guys say you are not iconic, I need to just say, all of your panels and videos like got me through a good year or 2 there when I was first going through my red pilling.
Oh, cool.
Oh, really? Cool.
I would watch them every damn night, especially like while cooking dinner. That was like my nightly ritual, watching your panels with it. You know what's strange though too is like it seems like that was maybe a little bit your early ones was maybe a little bit pre Trump becoming president, or like it being so decided upon that these are the views everyone has to have. Because thinking back for me, I'm like, I had a roommate then who we would watch them together and laugh about all the SJWs and we're in agreement. But then at a certain point, it's like it was just decided upon. Orange Man is bad. This is how you need to feel. And like all of a sudden he hated me for that.
Yeah.
When do you think that was?
I think probably like 20. Well, I don't know. For me, it was sort of like a progression of realizing
2019, like or late 2018, because that seemed when it got really nasty. At least that's when we have a big split in the audience that, you know, we'd always, some people, you know, might say 2/3 leaning more towards the right, you know, the right and left is kind of hard, I know, and about 1/3 towards the left. But after like 2018 and then 2019, that number dropped to about 15%. So I don't know, I'm going a little bit on that, but it seemed like things got a lot more toxic. There was a lot of people on the left saying, look, invite who you want. That's okay. We want to hear the discussion. I don't like that person, but bring them. And then it was a lot more like, no, we shouldn't validate these people.
Yeah, but I also think what was happening, and we saw it in the Philly, the event with Tim Pool and you know, Count Dankula and Jack Posobiec and everyone that was there. We saw like how Antifa was definitely more motivated and more like there was definitely a push to have this weird support for Antifa, and then they got very emboldened, you know. So like 20 was that Philly event 2018?
August 2019.
2019, yeah. And that's when they like seriously came out in full force and did everything they tried. That was our first tango with Antifa. Like we always had to deal with keyboard warriors, you know, like extreme ideologues on social media that tried to cancel us. But that was the first actual like real tango with Antifa in the streets, you know. So
showing up
there
in
was
person.
Yeah, there was definitely that emboldening of like, let's shut this shit down mentality coming from the extremists. And they had a lot of mainstream, you know, kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge support behind them. So
from local media, this was picked up in a lot of the Philly media and in other places. So yeah, so sometime between the fall of 2018 and the summer of 2019, things got a lot worse.
Andy was there
not
too.
Sure why.
That has to be one of the, because I've dealt with Antifa maybe like 10, 15 times now. That has to be one of the most blatantly unhinged instances. I mean, it was almost surreal. So first of all, that was the first, for you guys to know, that was the first event I went to of your guys. It was amazing. Me and Sean road tripped. But so we're at the after party, and I'm dancing with a guy wearing a Green New Deal shirt on one side of me, guy in a MAGA hat on the other side. And this is before I was as hardline, like, okay, I'm a Republican, I'm for Trump. So I'm like, this is amazing. This is how things should be.
Yeah.
But then across the street was Antifa, like it's friggin' West Side Story and the Sharks and the Jets. And they were screaming. They were screaming about Andy. Then they were calling Daryl Davis a Nazi.
Yeah.
And a white supremacist.
Yep.
Yeah. Daryl and Bill Ottman actually just told that story on Joe Rogan a couple days ago, where like Daryl Davis. So when we had the main event at a casino because of security issues and getting canceled from a different venue. And then we're at the casino. There's the Philly police sent in 2 undercover detectives just to make sure we weren't Nazis, and they had 40 uniformed police officers outside the casino, in addition to the casino security. Then we went to Jersey, where Tim used to live, where the VIP event was originally supposed to be. And the venue owner, who was fantastic, extreme progressive, like traditional progressive, like 90s progressive, but she was like so staunch in free speech. She's like, no, I'm not going to let them shut this down. So it was like, I think their bar was a capacity of like maybe like it said 120 on the wall, but there were definitely more people there.
That was packed.
And we could not go outside because, again, like you said, Mikey, there was Antifa on the other side. So the rule was no one could go out front. The only person that was allowed to go out front was Daryl Davis. He said, look, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to talk to these people. And it was Daryl and
Sargon did too.
Did he? Okay. And so Daryl went out and he went to talk to him and say, you know, like, these are not Nazis in here. They're not white supremacists, yada, yada, yada. And he was met by one of the leaders of Black Lives Matter, Daryl Lamont Jenkins, outside, who, called him a white supremacist. Look, you're in there, you're with those people, you're a white supremacist. I'm done talking. What do you say, Brian? It was like I'm done talking.
Yeah, we're done talking.
We're done talking. That's and
Daryl Lamont Jenkins had actually participated in Daryl Davis, and Daryl Davis is he's done this conversion. He reaches out to extremists like neo-Nazis, Confederate, KKK people. He's converted, say, 200 of them. And initially, like years ago, Daryl Lamont Jenkins was actually part of that project.
Yeah.
But he had since gotten away. And he really felt that in this new paradigm that Daryl Davis is now more like of a Marshall Pétain or something, like a collaborator government with the Nazis, that you're like an official in Vichy France, right? And you might say you're actually a Nazi. And that's essentially what his position was. Yeah. And it was pretty wild. They called the redhead libertarian a slut and a whore on the way. And so they were happy to hurl all kinds of sexist and racist slurs as long as it was directed against the other people.
Well, and the crazy thing in that small town in Jersey where Tim used to live, like they had, what was it? They said they had 250 officers on call. They had, I mean, Mikey, you were there. Remember, everyone had to get personally escorted by the police to the venue, and we had to go into the back door, and you had all the cops out front. They said they had another 250 on call in case like things really got out of hand. Yeah, that was. And that was like bizarre.
This is what it takes today in the current year in the United States of America. Yeah. This is what it takes for a group to gather to talk about any ideas that aren't just parroting the radical left.
But take a look at what that venue had to go through. So initially we had that place was our after party, and our initial theater canceled on us. So 12 days before the events, they actually canceled the contract. They which
is right across the street.
Yeah. And there's nothing.
You got 12 whole days? That's like
we had 12 days.
Like, I had them do it the day before.
Thankfully, big shout out to Jack Posobiec, who had a contact with the casino that we actually did. So he knew somebody there. We were able to call him. They had an opening, and then we did it. So we never announced where the venue was. We kind of said on Twitter, look, if you're a ticket holder, we have a new venue, but we don't want that one to get platformed either. So just trust us. Here's the zip code. At 8 a.m, doors open at like 11. Here, we'll give it to you. So just be around this area. And sure enough, at 8:02, a woman that works for Media Matters tweeted out the address, and the calls came in to deplatform that venue right away. But since the event was already underway, that couldn't get enough traction. But our initial after party venue never canceled. They resisted the mob. And for their troubles, they got their Yelp destroyed. So they had like a 4.6 rating on Yelp, and then it was knocked down to like a 1.5 because everybody is saying 0. They support Nazis. No, they were Jewish.
Such a beautiful place too.
Destroyed it. They were getting calls every day. Like you guys were there, Sean, and the phone was ringing about 4 times an hour, and it'd be like, "Hey, cancel that." And they were so ubiquitous and common that they would like, "Hey, do you want to talk to these people?" They'd hand it to customers as a joke to like talk to these people. And so that's a huge network swarm, right? You've got these that's a mob. And these network swarms are they're leaderless and powerful.
And especially because so many people capitulate to them. Like, that's amazing that this one person didn't, but I feel like that's kind of rare sometimes.
And extremely.
And I think what people don't understand about Antifa is if you've never seen a true cult in person up close, it's the spookiest damn thing you've ever seen in your life. Like, to have these people screaming in my face at different events I've done and stuff, screaming in my face like rabid animals, screaming at the sky, like the hatred in their eyes is like nothing I've ever seen. And I was like, I don't think we've all faced shitty people, whatever. I don't think I've ever seen like true hate before dealing with Antifa.
Did you guys get Antifa on the walkaway events? At the walkaway?
Yeah. How many of the worst one was San Francisco, because the venue canceled us maybe like 2-3 hours before the event.
My God.
So we were like, screw you, we're gonna have our event on the sidewalk in front of your building.
That's right.
Well, they did that to Blair too, right?
Was Blair at that event?
No,
yeah.
Oh, that was Blair. Was that Blair's event?
It was Walkaway. It was me, her, and Brandon.
Oh,
And,
yeah, that's okay. That's what the event was. Yeah. Where like they camped, and then didn't Blair and didn't you guys like do something like locally, like in a small?
We had a well, so then Chicago they canceled this the day before, but the first one in New York, it blew up into this whole shitstorm because we were gonna. It was like the LGBT town hall, and we were initially going to do it at the LGBT center. I think they maybe didn't like look into us, and then there was so much pressure. They put out these, like you said, these targeted campaigns. They put out a whole dossier of our hate speech. We actually sued for defamation, which
good.
I will on my deathbed say we should have won that case because what they literally did is they would take like little clips from like for me for example, they would take little clips of there was one video where I was speaking against this person who went on some like white pride rant or something. So I was saying this is what he said, this is why it's wrong. But they clipped a little part where I'm saying this is what he said without saying this is what he said, as if it's my words. So I think we need tougher defamation laws. I'm with Trump on that one.
I agree 100%. Yeah, that's one of the things Andrew Sullivan's brought up in the past too, like make it extremely uncomfortable legally for them. And that's what we did in Philly. You know, after the event, we actually hired Harmeet Dillon to kind of send a message to that theater. And, you know, like we knew we weren't going to get anything. We weren't going to get any gains or whatever, but it was more like a kind of like more of a symbolic, like, hey, here, you can't do this shit to people, you know? When you sign a contract, That's one of the things that's funny. Like that's the answer to Antifa in these situations is contract law. Like, now what we do is like we're, you know, like I'm as transparent as possible. I take them through the website, I go through, I said, look, this person's there, this person, you know, and we're very fortunate, and that's why we're going back to Fort Worth, Texas. The Ridgely Theater in Texas is like actually like they're amazing. They're stoners. There's like a stoner shop next door. You can tell like that it's like a really chill vibe. But they're pro like free speech. Like I remember the last event we had, they were loving it. Like they were like, this is fantastic. You know, they're excited to have us back. Those are the partners you have to find, you know, to kind of to eliminate Antifa's potential, or whoever it is, the mob's potential. And we kind of had it already this year a little bit. We had some SJWs, like old school SJWs, try the same bit where they're like adding the Ridgely Theater, like, oh, look at Lauren Southern's gonna be there, this person's gonna be there, blah 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 blah, you know, and it's not gonna work.
Yeah, so there's actually a small cancellation mob trying to start for this event.
Yeah,
they've already started for this one. Yay!
The person they're upset about is Lauren Southern. So that's apparently that's a bridge too far.
Yeah, but it's not going to work is the point I'm making. Like, because our relationship is so good with them that they understand like what the idea is and they actually support it. So, yep.
Mikey, you're frozen. Did we lose you?
Oh, we lost Mikey.
I don't know.
We've been here before, Bri. We just have to.
I don't know if this piece is still going.
Yeah, I saw an interesting.
Hey, are you guys seeing me? Sorry. Hey.
Yeah.
Did Antifa take out our stream?
Yeah. They came in. And
sorry, it's my stupid internet.
It's New York,
Don't
am I right?
What's that?
You're in New York, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
Internet's horrible in New York.
It just everything is horrible in New York now.
Did you see your mayor now is allowing professional athletes to ignore the COVID mandate, but the rest of city workers still have to? Did you see this?
Wait, like concession people?
Yeah. So remember, Mayor Eric Adams, he's been under fire because Kyrie Irving can't play in New York because they have two mandates. They have the mandates for the patrons, which has been lifted. So if you go into an establishment, you don't have to have a COVID vaccine, but they still have the COVID vaccine mandate in place for New York employees. And because Kyrie Irving is technically a New York employee, he can go into the stands and watch the game, but he cannot participate in the game because he's, because of the other vaccine mandate.
They want to save lives, Sean. They want to save lives.
But what he just announced yesterday is that he's rolling back the COVID mandate for employee workers if you're a professional athlete.
Oh, God.
And that has always been what this has been about this entire time.
It
is about
make a bullshit exception. Yeah, not principle. It
is about transferring wealth, transferring power. I mean, this should be things that leftists claim to care about if they were sincere, because this has been the biggest transfer of wealth and power in history, up to just the very small few from the middle class. I mean, there is no more middle class. So this is just another example of that. And I thought that if these mandates got lifted, which I don't even really consider them lifted, I knew that there would be some loophole. I knew there would be something. I thought I would be happy. Yay, I can do stuff. But I don't feel that way. It still feels disgusting that there's still people in my city who can't do anything. I don't want to go and do anything here. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying, like, his reasoning. So, like, Eric Adams is thinking, at least he's claiming he's thinking from an economic standpoint. But what he's saying is he wants people to go back into the office because apparently there's still a high percentage of people in, New York City that are still working remotely, and they refuse to go back to the office, and they refuse to go to the restaurants and stuff. So what he's saying is if we force these mandates, people will feel more comfortable to go and do those things. And it's like, he obviously has not been paying attention at all. There's some people that are going to be doing that forever because that's just who they are. But you have to let the people that, say the people that are more risk taking get back to normal. And by doing that, you can't force them to have a vaccine. There's just some people that won't take it. So he just needs to lift them completely. It doesn't make any sense.
Especially one that doesn't even stop you from getting it, doesn't stop you from giving it.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't anything.
Exactly.
It's insane. I mean, I think there was a moment in my sort of red pilling journey when I realized that these people, their words mean absolutely nothing. I mean, they shrieked Black Lives Matter for a year just to vote for somebody with a 50-year record of screwing Black people, imprisoning Black people, bankrupting Black people, voted for him, then supported policies that have segregated a majority of Black people in my city. And they support that. The Black Lives Matter people.
I know.
After reading Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s book, you can really empathize with a lot of the vaccine hesitancy, even before COVID, that existed in minority communities. I mean, the crap that was going on, the HIV vaccines that they were trying to develop and experimenting in Africa, when the FDA would tell these people, you are absolutely not going to use that drug here. You will not use that here. And they would just go to Africa and do it. Mm-hmm. And they would also do it in poor communities in the United States where they could. And, in some extreme cases, we're actually for kids that wouldn't take their HIV medicines. And these are orphans, right? And in communities, they were putting in feeding tubes to force them to take their medicine. This is against all kinds of bioethics. These stories would get out. I mean, it made me feel like, holy crap. If I grew up in something like this and hearing these stories, I wouldn't be trusting these things either.
Yeah. And but to Mikey's point, though, you have some people that are like, for instance, Ibram X. Kendi, who 100% could have stood on principles and said, yes, the COVID vaccine mandates are systemically racist policy. And he didn't.
Yeah.
And he didn't because he knew where he knows who pays him and he knows what the quote unquote, the left establishment narrative is. And instead, again, so there are people out there that are just doing it to kind of grift, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Sean made a good call. So Ibram X. Kendi came to Milwaukee for a speech, and Sean said, we got to go to this thing and watch him, and we got to ask him a question. And I'm like, he never takes Q&A. And Sean must have had some kind of lark from God, because sure enough, in a 45-minute speech, he actually he cut it to 35 and took 10 minutes of Q&A. So Sean pushes me up there. I know exactly what question I'm going to ask. Right. I'm first up.
Well, we wordsmithed it with James Lindsay the night before.
Well, I knew exactly what I wanted to say, right? And the point was to say, are vaccine mandates racist? Because in your conception of a racist policy, anything that has a disparate impact is racist. So, for example, if your speed limit's 55 and more black people are getting pulled over for speeding, then that's a racist speed limit. So it needs to either be higher or lower based on, right. So I said, based on that, wouldn't vaccine mandates also be a racist policy because it is going to disproportionately negatively affect them because they are more vaccine hesitant as a whole?
Yeah.
And he thought for a while, and it was funny that the crowd came to a hush.
Well, because it was all his people. It was all that was the interesting.
They're waiting to be told what to think.
Yes, yeah. But no, what was interesting,
and it was
too,
packed. It was
there was a number of black women that were like, you know how they go, You heard some of that, and I was like, that very wise kind of that black woman when they know something that's interesting, and you heard that, and then he pauses, and then he's like, well, I believe that it's actually the white conservatives that are more vaccine hesitant than the African Americans. But if that's true, if it is in fact that case, then it's because they don't have access to the vaccine, and that's what's systemically racist is the access to the vaccine.
Yeah,
and
even though they were free and everyone.
How? I don't know.
There's literally. One, not more. There's more than one on every block.
I had bullshit.
I had to go for a test to help my friend out of surgery. There were 4 on this one intersection, 4 in a block.
Right. And I empathize why they might not want to get vaccinated. I empathize with anyone of any race.
But here's the thing: if Kendi would have said, "Look, yes, they are," I might have went and bought his book. That's what I said. I was like, "Look, I'll go buy his book. I'll get it signed by him and say, look, because he stood by his principles." But he wildly went against his entire body of work as a quote unquote scholar,
because their words mean nothing.
Yeah.
Parentheses, we have a super chat from my beloved Maddie. You all need to come down and do a conference in Australia when travel is easier. Get Daisy Cousins and Avi Yamini to come. They're both awesome.
Yeah.
I love Daisy at the Minds event. She's awesome.
Yeah, she is. She's so, I saw that super chat. I was going to read it out, Maddie. I agree. Daisy Cousins is great. I saw her at CPAC too. Had breakfast with her. And yeah, she's a blast. And Avi Yemeni, I have not met him. He would be great to have. I love how he gets out there and does this. It's one of the few people that's trying to actually do honest journalism there. And I love his spunk. Daisy Cousins is great. I would love to see her in Clementine Ford, if that was possible. Oh boy. I think they talked one other time, but on some show at some point, but I would like to do that. Because the point is, I actually do want to bring in the other side. I do want this to be a both-sided discussion. Because how else can you get at the truth? There's a great podcast that Daryl Cooper's been making. He goes under Martyr Made at Twitter. He had a thought experiment where he said, so this kid, say a 13-year-old kid or whatever, he's in high school or junior high, and he wanders on 4chan. And somebody on 4chan says that it's interesting that like the top people in the Russian security state were all Jewish. So he goes to his teacher and he asks her, is this true? I was told this. And she says, no, it's absolutely not true. And if you keep asking questions like that, young man, you're going to be sent to the principal. So then he finds out, that it was in fact true. Right. And then he's like, oh, well, this guy must be in possession of some special information. So he goes back to 4chan and then he realizes that this guy's not only saying that, but he's saying there's an entire global conspiracy run by Jewish people to do all kinds of things. But he knows he can't go to his parents to say this. He knows that he can't go to his teachers to talk about this. So he goes down the rabbit hole. And this is the problem when you limit discussions of ideas is people then will get them from the wrong place. Just because some guy that's crazy might be right about one thing, you have to give him that. So censor these ideas actually is going to create more radicals than to talk about ideas. Yeah. Now, that's kind of an extreme example because that's like crazy Jewish conspiracy theories, but we're doing the same kind of taboos exist around whether or not the COVID vaccine is safe, whether or not vaccine mandates ought to be okay, whether or not the FBI is a reliable institution. What about this whole Great Reset thing and the WEF? Oh, it's a bunch of conspiracy theories. We can't possibly. Yes, we must talk about that, or else you will get radicals.
And well, also, I feel like at this point, the lifespan of going from conspiracy theory to proven fact is about what, 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right, but not all conspiracy theories are the same. They're legit racist conspiracy theories that are bullshit. But if we corrupt our institutions so much, how do we expect people to tell what from what? And if we censor all discussion on this, you've got to have that.
I think. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We have to have these discussions to decrease radicalization. Otherwise, if we don't, things are going to get a lot worse.
I truly think, though, that for not necessarily for the people who promulgate these ideas, but from the more affluent people, the people at the top, I think they do know that the causes of these things. I think it's their goal to create more racism, to create more homophobia, all of these things. Because, I mean, first of all, it's an entire industry, but second of all, that's the way that they stay in power, and it's unfortunately been very effective to them.
Yeah, it's $3 billion. Did the DEI industry in 2020 was $3 billion, and it's just projected to go up. And you're absolutely right. That's kind of the sad truth with a lot of it is like. It's like any activism, right? If you're really good at activism, eventually you put yourself out of a job as to whatever activism you're doing because you actually made change. The problem is like they know this, so in order to keep keep those checks coming in, they got to make up things.
But is it? Here's this. Consider this though. Is it really a planned thing, or is it more of this network swarm? So, for example, what if Kimberly Crenshaw, right, who's kind of the founder of intersectionality, popularized what critical race theory is, at least in its modern form? What if she said, no, here's some of these things are wrong. I'm going to say A, B, and C, but D, E, and F, this new stuff is wrong. What if she said that? And she said, and here I am, Kimberly Crenshaw, of all my fame. What happens? Do you think that
she would get canceled by her own side? She would take a little bit of a red pill. It would just be another J.K. Rowling.
Or would it not split off? Like
it might.
So the swarms by itself. What I'm saying is we don't know what would happen. The swarm could bifurcate into two swarms, right? Like
which it typically does.
So what I'm saying is, if the swarm, and let's say she does get canceled. This thing is autonomous. It doesn't need to be controlled by anyone. These ideas are like a raving beehive, like a locust or something. It's just going to cover everywhere. There's no way to stop it.
But
I think someone like that, though, or Ibram X. Kendi, or any of these people, I think to say why don't they do something like that? Why aren't they honest with it? It's kind of like saying, why doesn't a TV psychic say, oh, actually, I can't really speak to dead people? They're just charlatans.
Exactly. Right.
Well, I get that. But even if she did, what my point is the network swarm are these ideas and the fact that we're all connected and, overnight, something can go from nothing to everything. George Floyd. But even this happened with Jussie Smollett. This happened with Covington. It happened with Kavanaugh. All these things go from 0 to 60 really fast. There's no leader to the swarm. So even if all these people came out, you still can't control the swarm.
Well, but I think what they're doing, though, Brian, and they're doing it pretty successfully, is they are changing the narrative. And the narrative is like, okay, forever it was CRT doesn't exist. And then we showed the evidence. Then it was, well, CRT isn't in K through 12. And then you show the evidence. And then blah, 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 blah. And they just had to keep conceding, right? They never really conceded, but the narrative kept changing. But now they're at the point where it's, CRT exists, it's in the school, and if you don't like it, you're a bigot. So now...
So this is the media. You're talking about the they in this case is
No,
the
I'm
media.
not. I'm not just talking about the media. I'm talking about the schools. I'm talking about the decision makers. I'm talking about the people that implement it. Now they've gotten... now that if you're quote unquote anti-CRT, you're Republican, you're conservative, whatever, you can be, you can be pretty much taken off the list as and excluded as a bigot, because now their narrative is, if you're against this, then you're the problem.
No, but some people are still saying CRT is not taught in schools. This is
There's
what I'm
still
saying.
some
Swarm,
people saying that, right?
can't be controlled. So there's multiple swarms going on.
Yeah,
like and I don't think anyone's in charge of the swarm.
The thing is, I think they've gotten away with this for so long. They're so used to just being able to gaslight the entire nation. And now there is a flaw in this premise of them trying to do that when it comes to education, when it comes to kids in schools, which they're trying to do that with all the LGBT shit too. The problem is that parents can see for themselves the things that their kids are being taught. So, so they're trying to tell parents who probably had no stake in anything political before this. They're basically trying to tell them, believe our words over your own eyes.
Yeah, and that I agree 100%. And that's like kind of something I've been like kind of working on, as far as like the biggest exposing of critical race theory and wokeness and anti-racism, whatever, was COVID and Zoom classes. Because the parents not only could see it, these were recorded, because a lot of them, they didn't understand what they were doing with Zoom. So they're automatically uploading it to YouTube, or they're uploading it because they're so proud of this. And the information was just out there. And I know we found a ton of it. Like it was just there. You could see it because of everyone had to do remote learning. It wasn't just in the classroom anymore. And I think that was a huge, a huge thing for...
What Sean's talking about is our Twitter feed had starting, say, summer of last year. Sean had found a video from Beaverton, Oregon, which is a suburb of Portland, where a teacher was saying, unless other teachers become anti-racist, we want to fire you. And this is shocking that you have teachers basically saying, if you don't adopt our ideology, you ought to expect to get fired. That goes viral on Twitter. And then we thought, okay, well, maybe there is something to this. Maybe we should be picking through all these teacher pedagogy conferences. Maybe let's go to these DEI programs that are online and take part in them and see what they're saying, and then take clips and record that and put it up to show this is what's really going on. And that got us a decent following on Twitter for doing that. So some people know us mostly for exposing DEI or critical race theory, as opposed to conferences and such.
Well, the thing for me was like when critical race theory, obviously James Lindsay's the king. Like he had been working on this for years, like trying to expose this. Like he was trying to expose it in the universities. He's trying to expose it everywhere that it lived. And, it just kind of got to the point where I started understanding it a little more. And I'm like, all right, so if it really is out there, it should be out there, right? So that's when we just started looking, and we're like, holy shit, it really is out here.
It's everywhere.
And it was just like insane examples, and like, and going down to like fifth graders, fourth graders, third graders. I mean, it's absolutely...
Oh, it's insane. In preschools in New York.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not necessarily new. I stumbled upon a video that's
it's not new,
9 or 10 years old, right? I think it's 10 years old now. It was 9 at the time. And because most of the stuff was somewhat recent, within 4 years, 5. But this is a Quaker school. They were separating their K through, or maybe it was either K through 6 or 1 through 6 school, separating the kids by race for lunch at a very SJW Quaker school 10 years ago. And the idea was for comfort, for affinity groups, that they need to like be able to bond with other Black. And they have this kid who's probably in 4th grade or so, cute kid, white kid. And they ask him how he feels, and he's kind of bummed. He's like, oh, but I have friends of all colors. And, I'm really bummed that like, I can't go to lunch with them anymore. And I kind of wish that we could still go to lunch together, but I know that they need to be with their Black friends.
Oh God!
I know. And he goes,
Not
I
like
try
this
to
is
be a good
America or
ally.
anything.
Yeah, and he's a 4th grade kid, and he's like, I try, so I know I gotta try to be a good ally, and that they'll probably have more fun at that lunch than my lunch.
Yeah, that was
but indicates that he's, and that this was part of their promotion video.
Yeah, it was Affinity Spaces.
Yeah, Affinity Spaces, and they were good.
And that is why I say I truly believe that the people at the top where these ideas are coming from, I think many of them know what they're doing. I think the people below them who push these ideas are kind of, a lot of them, useful idiots, and some of them have better intentions, I guess. But there's no way to look at all of these things that are being done and not see the outcome. That of course it's going to create more racism, more isms in general. It's insane. When I was in like kindergarten or whatever, the teacher opened up a white egg, opened up a brown egg to show, look, we're all the same on the inside. That was lovely, but there's none of that now. Now it would be like the white egg is privileged and hates the brown egg, and it's crazy. And I think especially like going to public school in Manhattan, like in high school or whatever, it was probably like 50-50 black to white. And it was such a non-issue. Everyone was friends with everyone. And now it's like I'm constantly seeing news stories from where I went to high school. They're having walkouts for white supremacy. I pass that area sometimes. And when you see kids getting out of school, this is before lockdown, I mean, it's just like the white kids stay with the white kids, the black kids stay with, it looks like segregation is returned.
Yeah.
It's so terrible.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine, by the way, back 1,000 years ago when I was in high school, public school, they literally had like pictures of Che Guevara on the wall, and the history teacher illegally took the class on a trip to Cuba to teach how to be good socialists.
Yikes.
And this was 100 years ago. So imagine what's happening now.
Holy cow.
I know.
Well, and Assata Shakur.
And you what's that?
I said is it Assata Shakur still in Cuba?
No
like
one
the
knows
one fell in the cop killer?
No one has any idea what you're talking about. No, I forgot what I was going to say. Thanks, Brian.
1 second, let me get to a super chat from someone I love very much. Hey, her channel is amazing. You guys need to subscribe to Keto and Crime if you like true crime and all this. So it's so good. Thanks for all you do. So glad there's still some sounding out there. Oh, thank you for what you do. I got to go on her channel and talk about Scream.
Yeah, what's she talking about?
Oh, wait. The new one?
Yes.
Oh, you saw the new one?
We talked about all of them. Have you not seen the new one?
No, I haven't. What? I've been reluctant. Why does it look so low budget?
It does, right?
I'm like, was this made in 1990? You know?
No, I think it's because they filmed during the lockups and they use all. I'm hoping. I loved it, but yeah, we need to have movie night.
is Courtney Cox in it? She's still in it, right?
Yes.
Okay, and
her and her new face.
Yeah, I was just say, like she just looks completely jacked up. Like,
yeah,
I love.
She's a different face in every movie.
I know. Like, she's gotta hate Jennifer Aniston, right? Am I right? Like, seriously, like. Yeah,
I saw it with Sean though, Actual Justice Warrior, and he's so grumpy. He hates everything, so he didn't like it. But I did.
Brian's the same way with like pop culture. Like, he doesn't get it. Like, there's a certain level of like people's knowledge that, you know, like really smart people that don't understand pop culture at all. You know.
So what am I supposed to understand about pop culture though? Yeah, I would say, like, if we're playing trivia, pop culture is my weakest subject. Yes. I agree.
I'll give you, for instance, like, he just made that reference about someone going to Cuba. Like, nobody knows.
Assata Shakur is a cop killer that I believe is in asylum in Cuba. Like, I don't know.
It sounds familiar. I know I've heard the name.
I know, I know it too. But I'm just saying, you can pull that stuff up on Will, but when it comes up to like, what was the latest comedy movie, you have no idea. Yeah, it's just funny. It's just funny.
Well, but there are no good ones, so it doesn't behoove me to know that information.
Yeah, but I will say, and I've just put a plug out because I know they need it, right? Apple TV show Severance is very good. Very, very good show. Have you seen this one, Mikey?
I haven't, but can I give a plug for an Apple TV show? Nobody's listening to me. I've been saying this for like 3 years. It's on. Tonight is the finale of season 3. No one is listening to me on this. You guys have to watch the show Servant.
Oh, I've watched is the season finale on tonight? I thought it comes on tomorrow.
Well, midnight tonight.
Oh, midnight. Okay.
I
Yeah.
can't believe you watch Servant.
Oh yeah, love it. I mean, M. Night Shyamalan, like everyone always gives Shyamalan shit, but he's had really, really good movies. I don't know if you saw Old lately. That was like
I
very
haven't.
good movie.
Friends who saw it scared me off. They said it was so terrible.
Oh no, it was amazing. It was fantastic.
I actually, other than maybe one or two, I haven't really liked his movies all that much. I figured out what it is with this show though, because this show he just produces it and directs some episodes. His movies, he writes them. So I feel like he's an amazing director and producer, and he should stick to that.
No, I know. I love it. I love it. And it's funny seeing like Rupert. What's his name? Rupert Grint.
He's so good.
For Brian, for you, that's he was in Harry Potter.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's funny seeing him as like they're trying to make him like this 40-year-old guy, but you can tell he's like in his 20s, and they're trying to make him look like addicted to drugs and alcohol, and his American accent's not great. But it's just kind of funny seeing him in that role. But yeah, no, the show's fantastic.
Oh, it's so good. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Yeah, I feel. Oh my god, I'm in shock. I feel like we're the only people who watch Servant.
You know what I think it is? It's like there's really good content on Apple TV, but I think people are kind of at the point where they're like done getting apps. You know, like I don't know how well it's doing right now. I know it's a little expensive. I know they're trying to give it away like crazy, but there is really good stuff on there. I do.
So Sean, did you like M. Night Shyamalan's The Village?
I did not like The Village, but I did like his trilogy. Was it the one with Bruce Willis?
Unbreakable.
Yeah. And then second one was Glass, and what was the third? Or second one was something.
Sean's got pretty good taste in movies. I had to ask because keto and crime said they didn't like it too. So I was testing you there.
I really liked his movie The Visit, actually.
Oh yeah, with the grandparents.
Yeah. Leah, I cannot believe you actually watch. Is The Village a horror movie? I haven't seen it because Leah will not watch any.
Someone said it freaked him out, so you know Leah.
Yeah.
So
it can't. It must not be a horror movie if Leah would watch it.
Yeah, everyone always gives him shit, but he's really put together some good stuff in that. Yeah, that Servant's very, very, and the mother in that is fantastic because she's like the perfect like mix of like kind of put together person, but also is kind of crazy. Like you can tell.
She's insane. It's so good.
It's
so good. You guys have to watch Servant.
Yeah. But it create a false reality. The person wakes up and sees the truth. Like I do like those kind of things. I mean, even Fight Club. It's the person waking up to see the truth, but in fact, it's actually him.
You know what I have to say I love about Servant 2? It's like 3 seasons so far. There has not been one word of politics.
Exactly.
Or nothing. Yeah. It's like politics does not exist in this show. It's amazing.
Right. You know what's actually, here's an interesting thing. So I don't know if you've watched what is that one? It's about the programming. It's about the video game. Something Quest.
Bandersnatch?
No. I'm sure your chat will know. It's escaping me. But the people that made Sunny made it. So like Max, the main character, and like Charlie is one of the writers. Like the people that made Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But it's really good anyways. But the show is about like these developers that make this video game. And they have like the gamut of like people in there. So you have like woke people and stuff, but the show constantly is making fun of the woke, like the whole thing. And like the second season, it was Rob McElhenney, the actor. And there's a scene where he completely destroys this, like one of their woke SJW characters. And essentially he's like, look, you're always complaining about old white men. I'm an old white man. I'm here. What do you want? And she didn't know what to say. And it's like, that's the problem with you guys. You don't know what you want. You just complain. It was really, really good scene. But yeah, it's really, really good.
But this is the other problem with the mob that we were talking about, right? The mob always has outrageous demands, right?
Yeah,
for BLM, they were some of the demands were abolish prisons, right? There's so many outrageous demands. If you look at the actual demands on the BLM website, and they're non-negotiable, right? This is really weird. I mean, take this forward to Ukraine, for example, and this is not my idea, but the network swarm that's facing the Ukraine right now is outrageous. that not only did you know, the other countries, you know, nation states are upset with this, but to have entire economies, entire corporations cutting them off and destroying, like, this is, I've never seen the Ukraine flags go up that far. Do you remember this? Like during the Iraq War, remember it was freedom fries and crazy patriotism and all this. Like,
what happened to those people?
Right, but so if the network
The
swarm,
Republicans.
if the network swarm can take down Putin, and they're demanding his removal, they're demanding that, you know, you can't negotiate with the war criminals. What they're saying, that he be tried, executed, whatever. If the network swarm can take down a nuclear armed nation state, it can take down anything. And that's scary. That is really scary that this can happen. And that's the thing. I'm less conspiratorial about it, that there's somebody, a Wizard of Oz, pulling all the levers, and that we've created these kind of self-fulfilling automatons, like this network, these network swarm of ideas. They're going on their own. Like, it may be fueled by AI that just knows what to promote. The AI might know your emotions better than you do. It might be able to manipulate you. So rather than like the AI taking over, like the AI wins by getting you to kill yourself, and you're willing to do it or something, or you're willing to go along with it. I just find this, I don't know, this mass formation so weird.
I think it's the institutions that are the ones pulling the strings at this point. But what's interesting about what you just said, I think, is like TikTok, for example. If you look at TikTok in China, because it's a Chinese app, the things that they promote through the algorithm there are totally different. They're positive things, people getting in shape, people engineering, people doing positive things. What they set the algorithm for here are, you know, things that are totally toxic to you, a million genders, woke ideology. So
really? Like, I have a couple TikTok channels, but like the one that I
just got banned.
Mainly did. It just gives me funny stuff. It actually knows like my sense of humor. It knows a little bit of my hobbies. So it gives skiing videos. It gives a lot of funny stuff. Like it's actually apolitical.
Really? What I always say is TikTok is the most successful Chinese spyware ever created, for all of the reasons that you guys are mentioning. So there's a couple things going on with TikTok. The malicious spyware in it is insane. B, it does learn from the user, so it is very adaptable to the user, which is strange. It's also very manipulative and addictive because of that, because it knows it can learn from you and feed up, you know, and serve up what you want. But the woke thing too has also been completely promoted on that platform. And
if you're already woke, though, it probably reinforces it.
Well, but not necessarily. I mean, it depends, you know, like you don't know what kids are looking at, first of all. Secondly, you do have teachers on there that are like promoting it, which is really strange. But
I have to look for them. They don't come across my normal feed. So I think there's probably a lot of normies out there that are just getting regular stuff on TikTok.
But the other thing, the biggest thing too, and a lot of people don't bring this up ever with TikTok, it's completely fake. The followers, the numbers, the views, all of that is complete. It is 100% overinflated.
So is Getter.
Oh, is it? I haven't seen like the analytics on Getter, but like TikTok, like you'll see these videos that have like, you know, like millions and millions of views, and you know they're fake. I mean, we've run the test. We have fake TikTok accounts that do nothing, and they're amassing.
And they get a bunch of followers. Yeah,
they're just getting followers because they know how to keep people engaged. And one way is to fake the numbers and make it look like you're doing, you know, better than you are. But yeah, I mean, it's a bullshit app. The other thing, the content, I don't know if you guys notice this from what I've seen, like you'll see the same content, but like different channels are doing it. And it's like the same content, but like it's in different places. It's very strange. The whole thing's just fake. And what China does, you're absolutely right, Mikey, is they're actually limiting the kids like to video games and TikTok and all that. They only get a certain amount of time during the day per the government. And they're promoting completely different things on it. Absolutely.
But do they promote it, or do they just reinforce it? Because I have a TikTok account where I pretend to love social justice, and it feeds me lefty social justice. I have another one that it feeds me nothing but Trump memes and Republican stuff and blah blah blah. And then I have a normal one that's apolitical. Like
but again, you're not on the Chinese version. It was just like Weibo. Remember when we went down our China rabbit hole, like with Weibo, like how that's controlled by the government?
Okay, well that's different. That's a Chinese closed system. Oh, you mean Chinese TikTok?
Yes, Chinese.
Okay.
TikTok.
Yeah. Yes. So I agree. Okay.
Yeah, you're not on Chinese TikTok.
Yeah, I'm not. So Keto says I should watch Cam, the movie Cam.
I actually really liked that. It was very strange. It's not the kind of movie where you gonna like gather friends and watch it, have a good time. But it was very good.
What was that? What was that about, Mikey?
A cam girl, and it's like her sort of like basically. Remember those OnlyFans sluts before OnlyFans? Here's one of the
cam girls. Yeah.
Oh, OnlyFans without the fans.
Right.
That's
So it's about a cam girl and her whole like existential crisis, and it was very good.
Is it like the updated version of Collar 6, which is like the
Collar
same thing?
6?
It's an older. It's like a '90s flick of the same thing, except for it's phone sex because there is no webcam.
Remember phone sex?
Yeah,
that's so funny.
What was that phone sex movie? Girl 6?
Yeah, Collar 6. I thought, okay, maybe it's Girl 6.
Oh, it's the same one. I just remember the VHS cover when I was a kid.
Right, and she's like working, and it's like offices. It's literally cubicles.
Yeah, where they're like kind of telemarketers almost. Yeah.
Have you guys seen? I watched the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix, and it's so. How can you make a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie woke?
Really? It was woke?
And they tried to make it come across like they were parodying it, but just because there's one scene where it's like this guy's like, "Oh, you're gonna get canceled," so it's like, I guess mocking them slightly, but then the entire rest of the movie is like literally just 5 minutes in, I made a list. I'm like, we've had gun control, climate change, LGBT, and just go down the list of every talking point. And there's a mass shooting and guns and racism, the Confederate flag, and
Dexter did the same thing. Did they use like the new Dexter, the reboot?
Oh, really?
Did they use an electric chainsaw?
As opposed to what?
I don't know, a gas-fired powered one. Like in this,
I don't know the difference between chainsaws.
I don't know. That'd be interesting.
What do you, Mike?
I've never heard anybody think about that.
I don't know,
Mikey. What do you think about Sex and the City? Since we're talking about reboots, was that woke or not?
Did you see it?
Yeah. Well,
was it woke?
Yeah,
so,
I know.
Here's what Sean's trying to explain. So we got onto a Twitter Spaces conversation with Batya Ungar Sargon from Newsweek, and
about Sex in the City.
About Sex and the City, the new
well,
one
it happened to be about.
Where was I?
And what's it called? Like another, like whatever the new one's called. And here it goes.
And just like that.
And just like that.
I have a video coming out. I'm doing the and just like that saga.
So what Batya was saying is, she goes, no, this is you're reading it wrong. This is a parody of the woke. They're making fun of it. Right? This is a silent making fun of it. You know that it's a double layer, right? So but it appears to be woke, but it's actually making fun of it.
So her argument was, so it was like so over the top that they're making fun of it. Now that was, so we took one clip, and it was when what's her name, the redhead? I always forget her name.
Miranda.
Yeah, Miranda.
Not a redhead anymore. She's like a big bulldog.
She's a silver fox now or whatever. That was like a big thing.
Right? Oh, you had to hear my mother's commentary on the show.
Oh God, yeah. But remember the scene where she went in front of the professor and she's like tripping over her words and she's
you're a professor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
It was supposed to be like some illustration of how white women treat black women or something, and I thought that was completely woke. Now Brian thought it was a joke initially, so we kind of put it out there. I just put it out there. It's like, essentially, what the woke hell was this? And Libs of TikTok retweeted it, and it was interesting because you kind of saw a split and it got pretty big. There's a lot of people that saw it, and so it was kind of a split. Like some people thought it was a joke and they're poking fun at it, and some people thought no, it's way over the line. the one thing, and I wish I would have known this when I talked to Batya, was if you actually listen to like the creators, you know, the actresses in real life, and they're talking about it, they're actually going on and on about how brave it was to go as bold and be as bold and, you know, essentially social justice, in support of social justice.
Okay.
So the creators came out and said that. So
I could be okay, that's a pretty convincing piece.
See, I listened to the Writers' Room podcast.
Yes, the Writers' Room. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is like entering an alternate dimension. That's the Twilight Zone. That's how you get. That is like the portal that opens you through the Twilight Zone. Is listening to and just like that Writers' Room podcast. The things they say on this, she's like, it's like these white chicks, and then they have like the one black lady who's social justice-y, and the white women are just like, oh, we're very comfortable talking about race in the writers' room, right, Leslie?
Yeah.
Tell him, Leslie.
Even
exactly.
with the wrapped around their chest. Yeah, like Volcanic Rex says, this is a joke against the human race. Yeah, I agree.
I love him.
It's so again, that's a nice piece of evidence. But the comment section was great on this because they've got a circular thing. Miranda goes into the professor and she sits in the wrong chair. It's literally circular. I mean, why would a safe seat be important? Like, I mean, the whole point of a circular thing is to make everybody even. No one's at the front of the room, right?
Yeah.
It defeats the very point of having the professor's chair.
Yeah.
What's funny too is it shows the disparity between woke ideology and reality, because I watched that episode with my mom, and you know, I try to like fill her in on all this, the woke shit, but she's, you know, from a different time.
Yeah.
So to her, a black professor is just normal. There's nothing out of the ordinary about that. So we're watching that scene, and my mom just didn't get it. She couldn't comprehend. She's like, wait, what's her problem? Why?
That's funny.
What does she mean her hair? What's wrong with her hair?
That's funny.
Like, she just could not fathom why that'd be weird. And that, I think, is the thing that is so insidious about this ideology, is that it is taking us so much further away from that.
Right.
It is bringing us to the point of all being seen for nothing but our immutable traits.
And don't they destroy the character? Miranda's supposed to be the smart, like the hardcore bitch. There's no way that she would have tried to hop up and say, oh, she said that's the professor's chair when the actual professor comes in. Like, she wouldn't have said that. She would have stood back and be a stolid bitch. Like, that's her character.
Yeah.
Also, the original show, by the way, I like never expected that we would be talking about Sex in the City. This is like my jam right now. No, but oh my God, what they did. The thing is, too, the original show was very politically incorrect, and they were all kind of
extremely
conservative in different ways.
If you took any of those clips now, they'd all get canceled.
Oh my God.
Extremely. And to be fair, you know, like they did it in a lot of ways. Like people would, you know, like there's always a guy who goes a little too far that's anti-politically correct, but they're always kind of the joke, you know, he's like, okay, yeah, they went too far. And that's how comedy used to work. Remember, like when everyone knew collectively, obviously that person's going a little too far. But yeah, they said some crazy shit in the original seasons. Yeah. Like it's
well, then they leave out the best character is, you know, Samantha's by far the most fun character. You know, she's pushing forward like this, you know, a real sex positive view. But like the thing is, she's just funny. She's adorable and lovable. Like that, you need her to glue the group together. Without that, Miranda is pretty prickly.
Well, I think the key point about this is that the original series was so good because the main theme of it, the main point of it, is that it was for diametrically opposed points of view.
Yeah.
The thing is, today you are not allowed to have different points of view. So that just shows like that cannot exist.
So yeah, that's why they've merged them all together, because I thought the only one that would have screwed up that professor thing would have been Charlotte. She's kind of that naive person, so she might have spoke up to say that, but not Miranda.
Oh, they have an episode where she needs to find a black friend.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
but I thought though, the thing is, like, I think they were totally serious about it, but I still think it's very revealing about a lot of real life things, like with her 12-year-old daughter transitioning.
Okay, now
that, oh God.
See, now there's the one thing I forget who is her friends, who's Charlotte's friend that owned the restaurant or whatever.
Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony. So that was one thing. So if there was any redeeming quality in there, I don't know if you remember the interactions with Charlotte and him initially when her daughter was first talking about transitioning, where he was like, look, it's a phase, she's gonna get over it, blah blah blah. Like, he was actually like giving her pretty good advice, like, give it some time, you don't need to make these decisions now. Do you remember that at all?
Of course.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a gay, but of course that was just brushed off, and then they immediately go along with it. But what I thought was so revealing about it was that they go to the school for the teachers and the principals to tell this 12-year-old girl's parents, this is how it is, this is how it's going to be, Rose is now rock. And the parents are just like, oh, okay, well, the most they show is like they're leaving, and he's like, oh, well, it was very humbling. And you're so close to getting it. I'm like, you moron, it's not humbling, it is demonic.
Well, it was interesting,
a 12-year-old girl.
What was interesting about that scene, though, if you remember, Charlotte and Harry was her husband. I don't know why I know all these names, but
I'm shocked, and I love this.
They were really upset that the school didn't tell them initially,
but then
that they were like,
with it.
Then they went along with it. The problem is, though, like, they actually touched on the truth there. Like, there is a thing where the schools aren't telling the parents, and they expect the parents to be fine with it, you know? Like, I was at least happy that they were, like, upset with it at first, but you're right, eventually they caved. But yeah, they were calling her rock at school and treating her as if she was a boy already, and like, that's happening in K through 12 schools. It's crazy.
But that could be the whole idea. We understand that this is going to ruffle your feathers, but you need to get with the program.
It is just reaffirmed for me that whenever I have kids, these alphabet people are not coming 1,000 feet near them with this ideology. Well, I will warn my future children about this entire ideology, gender confusion, all of that. I will warn them about that the same way you warn them about people saying, here's candy, get in the van. Because that's what it's like.
But you have to stay involved, and that's the thing that people have learned. And that maybe that's the one silver lining in all of this for those with kids. Like, you have to stay involved. You have to have those conversations. You have to say, okay, what'd you learn in school today? You know, and when they start talking about, the crazy queer studies stuff, when like showing kids masturbating each other, like that's a problem. Like, we have to have this discussion. And kudos to the people, the whistleblowers on that, and the parents that have stepped up and got involved with their school boards and stuff. But it was just, for me, it was just crazy. It's like, I had no idea this stuff existed. And then you see it more and more. And like, Libs of TikTok has been doing really great from the educational standpoint, where she's like, she's showcasing like, this shit's real and it's crazy,
It's insane. Brian, I think the last time we talked, you told me about the gender closet.
Well, they had what was it called? It might have called it the gender. It was the something closet. So there were specific schools that are creating. It might be the gender closet. They're creating closets. So these are basically lockers. So if you don't want to tell your parents, and they aren't going to let you take a bag to school with extra clothes or dress, in the flipped gender, you can keep clothes there at the school. So you'll arrive in your, let's say you're a boy. You'll arrive in your boy clothes. As soon as you go to the school, you go into the closet, change into your girl's clothes. At the end of school, you go back in, change back, and then go home. And these are all meant to like live out your gender at school while keeping the parents in the dark. And Libs of TikTok also exposed that one too. And I think they were called gender closets, something closets, but like, wow, like it's just outrageous. And did you know, take your teachers, like I knew my teachers' personalities. This one was tough. This one was a little bit, but I don't know anything about their personal lives.
That's never. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Like, there was literally a guy who was a teacher in my elementary school that just walked around like this, and we still didn't know.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's great.
Yeah, and I never seen. There were some that I could tell were a little more conservative and a little more liberal, but I never felt like anything was being pushed on me. It's so weird. And to come out to your children, like I understand if people are going to come out, fine, come out. But to your kids, like, why don't you come out to your friends or your family or people that actually know you, your children in school, your students, your kids. And when I say they're kids, I mean their students. Why are you coming out to your students?
Especially like now that I'm thinking about it, friends of mine who have kids, when I'm with them, it would never enter my mind.
Right. That's
to
not
talk
a
about my
conversation for you to
sexuality. Like,
the heck.
who would even think such a thing?
I know.
It's bizarre. That's
I know.
weird.
Yeah,
and I think this is the most, a study just came out that they studied in Pennsylvania. I think it was a few dozen schools. 10% of kids there they found have gender confusion. 10%. Keep in mind the number of transgender people has always been about 0.3%.
Sure. Yeah.
10% of kids with gender confusion now. It is so horrific how you're allowing this to happen.
Yeah, and like I have empathy for people, like, if they truly feel that way and they truly feel like they're not in the right body, and I totally get that. But what's even worse though is that we have the schools diagnosing this. These are not professionals. You need like actual professionals like handling these delicate conversations with the kids, with the parents, so you kind of understand what's happening. Is this just a phase? What else can be going on? Not the schools who in a lot of cases, especially the younger teachers, who are activist teachers themselves. It's almost like how you'll have like people that say, oh, I'm so proud I have a trans kid or whatever. Like these activist teachers, I think, kind of follow in the same, where they're like, oh, I want to have all of these things. So, like it has to make sense that, some of these kids are trans and I can help them because, they have some weird.
Yeah.
And that's the parents'
It's a
job.
status symbol.
It's you see what you know what I mean? Like, like chicks will walk around with little toy dogs or whatever, like a status symbol, right? It's fucking weird.
But isn't that rooted in narcissism? Like, I'm going to leave my mark on those kids.
Yeah.
That seems selfish to me.
Also, just wanted to say, have a good night, Keto. Love you. You guys should subscribe to her. She's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And like I always am very careful too, because there is another side I see to all this where some people will point things out that are woke that actually aren't. And I think we need to kind of have a better balance with some of that too. So I always use my wife as a soundboard where I'm like, okay, am I crazy? Is this woke? Because some of this shit's so hard, it just kind of blends in now. I'm like, am I crazy? Is this woke? One of the examples was the Colin Kaepernick's documentary. A lot of people don't know that, like, we were actually the ones that put up that video that showcased him like comparing the NFL to slavery. And that was one of the things.
Which he now apparently wants to be enslaved again.
Yeah, he wants to go back into slavery now. But that was like one where I was watching, I'm like, this is so over the top. Like, it's so bizarrely insane. So I had my wife watch it. And she's like, no, yeah, she's a traditional progressive. She's like a 90s progressive. She's like, no, that's way over the line. So anytime I hear her, that always helps me, because I also don't want to be the person. It's like, calling everything woke and then, crying wolf, and I just want to be fair.
Yeah, I think some things now, Lisa, this is exactly what I was going to say, is I think a lot of things now, it's kind of hard to differentiate. Yeah. Like, I'll sometimes see things on Twitter and be like, is this a parody account?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we put one up the other day. It was like some chick saying how eating meat was racist. And I just found it, and I'm like, like, she obviously had all the talking points down. She actually did a phenomenal job.
No, her justification was, there's the reason why you shouldn't eat meat is because slaves didn't get enough meat. They got the slop, and then Jews in concentration camps didn't get enough meat. So therefore, we should save the meat for them. So that might have been the quote.
But you can, like, seriously,
we can have the pork.
Especially after seeing the professor, or that author that Jordan Peterson was talking about. I forget her name, right? Kathy, whatever.
Kathy Newman.
No,
Carol, whatever.
She's an anti-meat, so she believes that. Yeah, that every hamburger is served with a side of misogyny
and white supremacy, right? So there is, like, so she was the girl, the girl in the TikTok video was making some. I'm like, I can see them believing this, but I can also see this as being a joke, and I threw it out there. I was like woke or joke, and there's like people kind of like voting on it. Like, is it real or is it is?
Yeah.
But Libs at TikTok reached out. She's like, yeah, it's totally a joke. And I'm like, wow, it's just crazy because like I couldn't even tell the difference.
But I was like 60-40 probably joke. But it's not something I was going to bet the house on. That's
exactly. Sure. It's like so hard to tell these days. So.
But the explanation was ridiculous. That I thought that put it over the top.
Did you guys see the last couple days there was I forget what it was, some mainstream media thing though said exercise is a tool of the far right.
Yeah.
That was who's
it was like Washington Post or something, like one of the major ones, I think.
Oh, I didn't see this one. Well, did you see what Crowder did?
Yes. Oh, it was beautiful.
That was like the conceptual penis for fat studies. It was
fantastic.
It was, and it showed, and he did such a great job with it. Normally, Steven Crowder's funny. He's a funny guy. His jokes are pretty good, actually. He's a funny guy. But he did a really good job, like insightfully with this, and like why this constant feedback loop of insanity is terrible in academia, and how these things bleed out into the real world. And it was really good. It was like 17 minutes. He infiltrated a fat studies conference. He had the full makeup done up to look like like a overweight woman. And he went on there and he gave this entire presentation about how, the fatter you get, the more power you get. And like, it was really, really good.
That one was awesome.
Yeah. Anyone that hasn't seen this,
I couldn't believe the transformation. But the idea is that you're fat, and right, and since that your fat might like actually protect almost like a shield your naughty bits because you have like a panis that's going over, that being fat is actually self-care because it thwarts against being raped.
Well, it was even better too because she was like she Crowder was pointing out like the comments. The comments Trump has made about like fat people, but one of the examples he was like, and he even called the leader of North Korea short and fat. Like this was like a really thing. It was really, and the thing was like, if he would have went into that and they would have exposed him, they were like, look, this is way over the line. I would have been like, okay, fine, I'll give academia a little more credit. But no, she was lauded. They were applauding her. A PhD, another professor actually reached out to him after to peer review. Yeah, one of her papers on fat studies, and it's like, what? Like they can't even see it.
They can't spot their own fakes.
That's the thing. What he was saying was perfectly cohesive with all of the other ones.
Yeah,
there was nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's scary.
You know what I wanted to ask?
Now, when you work in physics.
You know what I wanted to ask you guys is one of the last times we talked, you guys said something that stuck out to me, and this has been something that I've always believed in very strongly, especially, maybe more so like pre-2020, but you said that part of doing these events for you is about normalizing friendship between different groups of people, different people with different ideologies. And I've always felt very strongly about that your views shouldn't matter. But so my question is, how? Because I don't know if anyone agrees with me, but like the last year or two, I just hate these people so fucking much. And that's not a good thing. You shouldn't have hate in your heart for anyone. I despise these people. So how the hell do we get past that?
Well, it's a good question. So one of the issues we really have a hard time getting people on the far left. So, we're talking like we've invited Antifa before, like the really far left people. Of course, they don't show up, but those people never show up. But you do have people that are in like on the left, closer to center, whatever, or just have, really principled stances on free speech. People like Stephen Bonnell or Ben Burgess. He's actually coming this year. He's a socialist. He was just on Joe Rogan. He had a 3-hour conversation with Joe Rogan, who is, quote unquote, far right according to the media, but they had a really good conversation. I think there are some people out there that we can reach, and Destiny, Stephen, he's one that like I listen to him and I will change some of the things that I think based on some of the points he brings up, so there are like people that are actually willing to have discussions, and like bringing them to the table, I think helps too, especially with their audience or the people they influence or whatever, you know, like they're seeing, oh, hey, maybe these conversations aren't terrible. Like Sophane was one, which was interesting. He was at one event, he was at the Kenosha event, and Jack Posobiec was there. And Jack Posobiec is like the boogeyman to the far left, right? Like he's the worst guy in the world. And it was so funny because he couldn't help from, like, he wanted to shit on the event. Sophane did. He wanted to shit on it so hard, but he couldn't because he went up to it and was like, they're about to go on a panel, and he was on a panel with Jack or whatever. And he was wearing this Futurama shirt, and Jack quoted a line from Futurama, and Sophane was like, I couldn't believe it. He was like, this guy that I thought is like this piece of shit and all this and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, he just quoted a line from like my favorite show to him. So like, I think there is like kind of a power to like bringing people together and realizing, look, especially in the days of social media, like you're not who you are online. You know, like we can have these discussions. Not everything's a fight all the time, and
right. And find the cultural anchor, right? So in this case, if it was Futurama, right, you have at least a cultural anchor to compare. People use Star Wars. I think that's the biggest cultural anchor right now that America has. Everybody's seen the show. Everyone knows the basic things, and you could compare certain things to politics right now. Isn't this, authoritarian thing just like Emperor Palpatine dissolving the Senate or something? Like, you need those cultural anchors. And one of the attacks on some of these is to make everything woke. They're trying to wreck the cultural anchors. So I think to answer your question, find what you have in common with that person. And see if you start there.
It's finding the common ground. Absolutely. And just having the discussions. I think when people come together, like they realize they're not each other's enemy, and it's really interesting seeing it happen.
And you got to do it alone if you really want to get through to somebody who's ideological. It has to be one-on-one. It can't be on Twitter, or it's otherwise it's performative.
Yeah,
I think something that I've noticed though so many times with a lot of these people, especially none of them speak to me now, but like back when I was.
Did we lose Mikey?
He's frozen again.
It's that New York internet.
I know. It's slightly better. Sean, you're the one with the best internet.
Yeah, well, that's Optic. What were we talking about? We're talking about conversation. Oh, that's in the beginning. That's what I was saying. Like, conversations are so hot right now. They really are. And you are seeing people like Joe Rogan start to champion it. Russell Brand, he's championing it. Like, there's a lot of interest in these conversations right now. What's happening? Understand
why is oh my god, my internet hates me tonight.
Yeah, it's okay, Mickey.
But anyway, so he was like, I'm a black lesbian, I'm a black straight person, so you're privileged. And like basically everyone was just fighting with everyone. So I turned to him and I was like, I know that you really deeply care about everyone being treated right and equal, but can I ask you an honest question? These things that you're doing, do you think that this is causing more racism or less racism?
Right.
And he thought about it for a second, and I couldn't believe it. He turns to me and he goes, probably more. But nothing changes! And I'm still the asshole to these people. Like, nothing changes. They don't evaluate that. Because I really do think that for a lot of
that crack people, might be there, though, and it takes time to marinate. You never know.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it's like you said. I think for a lot of people like that, it's just about like staying part of the in-group to them.
Yeah, so and there's definitely some bad actors, but I still would argue that most people are somewhere in the middle. Like you have really loud minorities on both sides, on all sides, but I still would argue there's still a lot of people like. That's what was interesting to see, like that Leah, her name was Leah Thomas. That's the interesting thing with that scenario, because again, there's so many people that support, trans rights and all that stuff, including myself, that still there's that one thing where it's like, okay, but, like we need to have this conversation. Like this is not, and not only is it terrible for the women that competed with her, but also just in general, like it's like Joe Rogan always brought up the MMA stuff, and I think the fighting thing is definitely the most scary aspect when you have trans women competing against women, just because of the sheer damage that could be done to someone, And I get it, everyone steps in the ring or whatever, but it's different.
Well, and
go on.
Oh, I should say, well, again, I feel like a lot of people who promulgate these ideas have put such little thought into it that if this is okay, why do we even have men's sports and women's sports?
Yeah, exactly.
Not one of them has been able to answer that for me.
Exactly. And that's actually, it was a great conversation with my wife, because again, she's traditional progressive, and it was a question I asked her. I said, look, I totally get this. This conversation like years ago, but I'm like, I totally get this. But think about prisons. Think about, I'm like, fuck the bathrooms. I don't care about bathrooms. But think about prisons. Think about sports. Like, can you stand on your principle and say there's nothing wrong with that? That's where she had to like go through and start thinking about it. And, the idea of like trans league, or, like a trans division or whatever, like she had that. I said, look, I that's a happy medium for me as well. I think a lot of people would agree with that. But the problem is, again, for some people, if you're not all the way on one side, you're the problem,
Yep.
And they don't want to have
parentheses. I did to say, Adam, hey, do you guys know each other, by the way? Adam Krigler?
Yeah.
No, we don't.
On Twitter? Like, we don't know personally, we know him on Twitter.
So saying you know someone on Twitter.
Well,
no, we don't. We know of him on Twitter, but yeah, it's awesome he's in here. Yeah, that's we've been trying to get a hold of Adam to speak at one of the events. So there you go. That's like works out for us. So Adam, we've sent.
Thank you, by the way, Adam. I've learned today that I'm very shadow banned, apparently.
Oh, and did you see Savannah Hernandez? She got booted off of Twitter too. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Did she? When was that?
For the coverage on Leah.
Yeah. There's a lot of landmines in that coverage, and using the right pronouns and man and woman, all that.
Yeah, that's just like the Babylon Bee got knocked off. Who else was it? Someone else got knocked off.
MJ, like more MJ, like the libertarian girl who's now doing the social media for the Babylon Bee, got booted too.
Yeah, I forgot. And it was so funny too, because of the Babylon Bee, they had another article where they were calling, it was like a spoof on the Woman of the Year. And they listed like a bunch of celebrities that were men that like dressed up as women at various points for whatever reason. And then like, I forgot who was Woman of the Year, but it was but Twitter was fine with that one. Twitter was fine with them like jokingly calling all these men women, which was interesting to me.
Did you see that one where the Leah Thomas interview was dubbed over with the South Park A Strong Woman contest?
Oh God.
And that guy's like, I'm gonna show you who's the baddest ass woman in this town.
That's funny.
I'm here to whoop some ass. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say also, like I said, it's creating the opposite of what they claim they want to, because they are creating such an unbelievable resentment and hostility, especially towards trans people, but LGBT people in general. It's something that I'm kind of starting to feel like the very beginning of, that I can see coming. That there's going to be such a pushback in general, because it's just so insane. Like for me personally, if an adult is transgender, to me, they're no different than anyone. I could care less. Like to me, somebody like Blair is no different than any other female friend of mine. Like but the thing is, in conversation, like that distinction is necessary. It's not in interpersonal reactions necessarily, but when they try to say trans women are women, no, trans women are trans women. But why is that a bad thing? Why must we erase all of our differences?
Exactly.
Like differences are a good thing, but anyway.
Well, no, it's you're totally absolutely correct, and I think this is going to be kind of a big red pill moment for a lot of more apolitical people that are in the center, and I think you are going to hear people that are going to agree with trans rights and all that stuff, but I'm getting an echo. I don't know where I'm getting that from.
But how about take this on this is ideological, but take something that's more scientific, like climate change or like vaccines and side effects and whether they're good or not. Like you're going to need very qualified people to actually talk to each other. I mean, when's the last time you heard Fauci or Dr. Birx like actually go through a white paper and say, here's exactly why. And then another one and another one, another one. What was really cool is Joe Rogan had on a climate change skeptic, and then immediately followed it up with somebody who's kind of the climate change advocate or
the establishment,
party of the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
And in one case, he goes, well, hey, maybe we should do it together. And the establishment guy was saying, well, you know, I don't know if I should really do it. He was afraid to legitimize it. He goes, you know, the science is set or something, which was weird. And then he said, well, the problem is doing this is like, he's going to come and cite some paper that I haven't read. And like, what are we supposed to do? Read the paper on the air? It's going to take a week. And Joe goes, so it takes a week.
Yeah. Because you have to have it.
Right. Have multiple things where, again, they will talk about this and absolutely have this conversation. There used to be a second opinion in medicine, right? Where one guy says you need surgery and the other guy says, no, we absolutely need to wait. Who do you know is right?
Right.
This is really hard to decide. And you get a third opinion and he's somewhere in the middle. Like, we have to make these decisions all the time. The science is not set. There's always schools of thought in things that are new.
But there's always
I always say my mom had brain cancer. It was something like 11 different doctors misdiagnosed her before someone could tell her what it is.
So what did they misdiagnose it as?
Oh, a million different things. I have to ask her. But
and no one got a CT scan. No one got a head scan then, right? They just said, oh, it's Bell's palsy or it's something like some...
Yeah, a bunch of them were just like brush off, like something like restless leg syndrome or something. But imagine if people like her weren't allowed to get that second or 12th opinion. You know, it's like there's a thing called the scientific method. It has never been a part. Trust has never played a part in science. It's the antithesis of science.
And even when they finally get the correct diagnosis of the brain tumor, the question is, should we operate? Maybe not. Like, and again, people, even in the highest subspecialties, brain surgeons don't agree on this. Like the entire knowledge of neurosurgery, say there's 7,000. I know this to be true. There's 7,000 neurosurgeons in the United States. If we chop that number down to 12, right? And then we recloned those 12 back up to 7,000. We've just lost about 90% of neurosurgical knowledge. Like, it's held collectively. There are lots of schools of thought. All of this is a mesh. There is no one way. That's what the way they talk about this. The COVID science is as if there's somebody telling all the doctors. You can't get doctors that have been in 20-year practices partners with each other to agree on stuff.
But now they probably have to. I bet a lot of them
in public, yes. And that's why we need these discussions happen. If they can't happen on CNN or even Fox or whatever, then they have to happen either on Joe Rogan, and we're trying to do our small part too, to have conversations, to do this.
I think it was interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Mikey.
I was just going to say, I wanted to share this comment because, you know, I don't know about you guys. For me, sometimes I feel like, does anything I say actually have any impact on anyone? But I love this. I've always been in the middle, but always voted Democrat. But I feel like people have lost their minds, so I can't vote Democrat. Not anymore. I love that, Kathleen. I'm happy to see that people are waking up to this shit. That's how I was. I never thought I would be anything but a Democrat.
Yeah, there's a ton of people I know the same way. And it was interesting too, like right around New Year's. I don't know if you saw this, Mikey, but the interview Joe did with Robert Malone, Dr. Robert Malone. First he had Dr. Peter McCullough on, and then he had Malone on right after. And that was like New Year's, and it was crazy. It was like a thing. I was actually had to do a comedy show, and I was doing a bunch of stuff. And like Brian and I have been clipping some of Joe's stuff, and we saw Malone was coming on. We had clipped some of the stuff for the Peter McCullough interview, and then we saw Malone was coming on. And then we just started throwing these like clips out there, and like for whatever reason, like Jack Pessoa was one reason, but they started going like insane viral.
Yeah.
Like viral to the point where we've never seen before. I mean, like 5 million views, things like that. And I think what happened was, I think that was that was definitely the start of the end of COVID. But I think what happened was people had been getting this narrative for so long from one side, establishment, vaccine, COVID's going to kill you, you're going to be hospitalized, blah, 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 blah. They weren't given that they weren't given that second opinion. They weren't given like the people in the field that have studied this just along with, Fauci and all the establishment talking heads. And I think they were finally given that. And I think people are like kind of woke up. But like for me, it was like, oh my God, there's like so much information here. I had no idea. None of this stuff, you know, and then now it's up to you. You can go fact check it. And now you can see here's your second opinion. I think that's what we're missing in some of these cases, you know, that
Well, and
second
also,
opinion.
could you imagine if throughout history we adhered to this idea of trust the science and didn't scrutinize and didn't question and didn't re-examine these things, we would still wonder where the sun goes at night. We would still think smoking is a good thing.
We wouldn't have science. Right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's science too. It's clinical practice. So Dr. Robert Malone, he's the guy that's doing more development. So he's kind of on the edge between doctoring and healthcare industry. Whereas Peter McCullough is a clinician. And on the clinician side, I work with clinicians that are neurosurgeons all the time. I go to top neurosurgery meetings to listen. And you'll hear people, these are chairmen of people of UIC and Case Western, and they take 30 minutes to present a patient. And they said they do the full history and they present a patient, and this is in retrospect. And then they'll go through everything. And then the surgeon will say what he did. And then I'll ask the chairman from UIC, what would you do? And she's like, I'd definitely not operate. No. Mm-mm. And then the guy from Case Western says, yeah, I totally would. And they're like, oh, interesting. And they talk about why would you do that? Why are you not? There's no shaming. It's all learning. And then the guy's like, well, our ICU isn't set up to do this and this. So we like to take this. She goes, yeah, that's interesting. And then vice versa. They're sharing information. There is no science. There is no right or wrong. Like when you're on the cutting edge of things, there are schools of thought. There is no science is set. And unless you're exposed to this, if you're an average person looking at this, I can see why people are confused.
Yeah, I thought this was a very good point. When they say trust the science, they mean trust authority.
It means trust the person that's speaking right now. And that's the thing. McCullough is not like you've heard from Jay Bhattacharya and like Marty McCary. And these people are very anti-lockdown. And they said, we should have focus protection and open up. Right. But nobody, like when I saw McCullough was going on Rogan, I'm like, McCullough thinks we should stop the vaccines. He's like, we need to stop the vaccination program, make this recall them. So, and wait, do the studies and maybe think again to release it. So none of those people are saying recall the vaccine. He is. And he's not a quack. There's another thing they're doing too, is there are quacks in medicine, right? But they were already quacks. It's weird when someone has this pristine record all the way up to say May 2020, and now they're a quack. Because they're off narrative. And they're doing a lot of this to delegitimize. And Malone and McCullough are suffering. And they have some of the most impeccable reputations. So does Ryan Cole. And all of these guys, they're going after them. And they're not fringe. This new neo-quackery stuff is complete BS. And all of that's propaganda. And it's really, but I can see why people are confused. Well, if it's all propaganda, what do I listen to? Well, we need people
yourself.
We need people like Rogan. We're trying to do it too, is bring people together to talk about this and to normalize this and try to actually search for the truth.
We should probably start wrapping up soon. We're almost at 2 hours. If anyone has any last things in the chat or anything,
nothing other than if you guys if you guys haven't been to the conference before, it's on April 23rd. If you're anywhere near Fort Worth, Texas. It's actually worth the drive or the flight. It's really a blast if you haven't been there. The whole thing goes all day long. It's super energizing. We stay out till like 4 a.m. partying. There's beer. It's a lot of fun. Everything goes really well. And you actually get to talk. Everybody that comes there, people on the right and left, you can actually talk to sane people. So I talk to the lefties almost the whole time because I knew everyone that's coming actually wants to talk. So here's a chance to actually interrogate the belief system without getting accused of being a Nazi and so on and so forth. So that's
and what's really cool is like the speakers that we've been working with, most of the speakers for a very long time, and they like it because they get to come, they get to interact with people, they get to interact with each other, and it's just cool, kind of like seeing the people you see on YouTube or whatever like come together and actually have these discussions in real time. So yeah, Mikey, if it's okay, can I just like announce who's going to be there?
Please, I should say also the links are below. So go betterdiscourseevent.com. I will be there.
Yeah,
Come hang
gorgeous
out with me.
theater. Mikey's going to be hosting. He's going to be on stage all day. It's going to be fantastic. Gorgeous theater. Fort Worth is beautiful, by the way. I fell in love with it. So Blair White's going to be there. Stephen Bonnell, James Lindsay. I believe we have a discussion. Yeah, we have a discussion with James and Stephen Bonnell this year. It's going to be great. Libby Emmons from the Post Millennial. Carrie Smith is going to be moderating a huge portion of the day. She's great at it. Lauren Southern, first time for her, actually. So we're excited to have
I'm
Lauren.
so excited to meet her.
Yeah. Nikki Klein, Colin Wright, Josh Slocum, Sean Fitzgerald, of course, actual Justice Warrior. Mikey and Nuance Bro. And then we got some new people. Ben Burgess, who again, very, very much on the left. So it's actually pro-socialist. He's a legit socialist. He's not like a crazy socialist, but he's a legit socialist. Andrew from Walk Don't Run. Spectre, who's from the left as well. Lisa Reynolds and Savannah Hernandez is going to be there. So,
and if I can address the chat, Michael Lobra or Michael L asked, like, what's the name of the event? And it's called Better Discourse. So if you Google Better Discourse event,
the link is in the description.
Yeah, betterdiscourseevent.com, and you can see it there. And like, there's tickets as well as all that information. So if you're 2 hours outside of Dallas, you should totally go.
Adam, come! You should come. We'll hang out. You guys should know also there's an after party.
Adam should, yes, the after party is a blast too. The whole thing is really fun. You get to talk to all these people, and that's the thing. Like, a lot of the people, if you're not on stage, they're mingling around, so you can have these side conversations.
Yeah, a lot of
yeah,
and a lot of events too, like like CPAC or whatever event you go to. I don't even know what's on the left anymore. Whatever, atheist conference or whatever. Most of the time, a lot of, especially the big names, like, they pretty much just they'll come and they'll do their bit and then they leave.
Yeah.
And you don't get to interact with them and stuff. Like, the one thing that's really cool about this is, like, again, the speakers that we work with, they understand and they actually do enjoy, like, talking to people, and it's really, really cool,
Yeah, we kind of ask a lot of our speakers, because it's a whole day event. Like, you've kind of be there and you may be on stage once or twice, and the rest of the time you're just kind of floating around. But it's really cool to, like, have a way to interact with fans. And there's a lot of people that are just stoked that, wow, I got to talk to Sydney Watson or Ariel Scarcella or whomever for like half an hour, and you would have just never gotten that to do that otherwise. So it's really fun to, like, actually meet people in person, because it adds, online's great, but it adds so much more.
Mm-hmm. Be very excited to come talk to me.
Yeah, like, but
of course.
My favorite time was talking to Mikey.
I should say also, I think the thing about Mythinformed is that it's the perfect in-between, because I know you guys are very committed to good discussions and civility and all that, but it's also spicy. Like, it's also super entertaining. There's no drama killers here. Like, shit gets heated, and it's very respectful and wonderful and lovely, but, like, you're gonna get your money's worth. Trust me. Yeah, because I don't know about you guys. I want to see a little drama.
That CRT thing that got a lot of drama, right? And when you have passionate people that are, like, on one side or the other on CRT, it's gonna get heated. But we at least had the conversation. It was the only conversation that I saw of, like, major names of people up there doing it live and actually talking to each other in person. I haven't seen it otherwise.
Yeah.
Actually talking about critical race theory, because the people from the other side don't come. So I give a lot of credit to Michael Rodriguez and Justin Gibson, who's Jangles, the credit for doing it. And they were well prepared. I mean, I looked, they had 18 pages of notes.
Oh, so Jangles brings it when he gets on stage. He's very good.
Yeah, and you really don't know. I mean, like, everyone wants to be right, but that's great. But you really don't know if you're right unless it can withstand. You could run practices in plays all day, but you have to play against a defense to know if you're any good.
Yeah,
like, you have that. So it's important. So you could be a partisan and you can come and enjoy. It's great. But the thing is, that's the point. You need to, your ideas have to withstand scrutiny. And it's okay to borrow and say, guess what? I agree with 5% of the other side or whatever. Like it's okay to mix and match. It doesn't have to be one color.
And to Mikey's point, though, the passion does come out. You know, our goal is not to have people up there who are going to be yelling and screaming at each other, because that doesn't do anything. So we purposely try to plan for that. Now, obviously, there've been instances back when we were MythCon where we didn't know some people were going to come up and act insane on stage. But yeah, like no one does that.
But
anymore.
even the most
people just act insane off stage.
We used to go without a moderator, and we decided to put one in. But even those conversations, if you walk them, they're pretty bumpy. But you actually, when you rewatch them, you actually can get at some truth. It's interesting to see people go at each other like that. Like that's interesting.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't do that. But there definitely are some passionate points brought up. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's not boring. It's not at all boring.
No. Not at all. Oh, it's so good.
Oh, that's the one thing. So like Jack's wife, Tanya, Jack Vasovic's wife, Tanya. The one thing, like, I believe her. I don't think she's blowing smoke up her ass, because like they're constantly going to these things. Like Jack's always invited to speak at CPAC or wherever, you know, like different places. So she's, you know, she's going along, and she has to go into. And she's like, look, out of all the events, we really like this event, and because of the discussion, because a lot of the events that you go to, whether right on left or right or left, it's just an echo chamber. Like they're just talking to their audience. They're not challenging anything. There's no discussion. It's just really, oh yeah, that point. Yeah, I agree with that point. Oh, I really agree with that point. Like that's pretty much what the discussion is. But yeah, so this does change it up a little bit. So
no, and I think what's so cool about it too, a few things is like, trust me, I've learned a lot of these other sort of conferences, like they want people who will fulfill the very specific roles and repeat very specific talking points, even if they're ones that I largely agree with. And I think the amazing thing about Mythinformed is it's one of the only groups where nobody will ever tell you what to say, what to think, who to be, what questions to ask. And I think another thing that you guys don't get enough credit for is that makes it even more interesting is that you always have a really eclectic, interesting group of people. It's not only academics. It's not only anything. Like you'll have panels where you'll have, you know, these very intellectual academic types next to some crazy bitch like me. So I think that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And that's definitely something we're proud of too, because again, you let people cut their teeth. Like there's been a lot of people that we've had on the stage before that have like blown up since, you know, so we're actually really good at like identifying people that we're like, yeah, they really believe in what they're saying, what they're doing. But yeah, getting people up there and, like Brian said, really having to test their mettle and say, okay, this is my position. I have to defend this now. So it does, yeah. So like you have a PhD, someone with a PhD up there versus someone that just does it on YouTube, you know. And when I say not versus, but like having a discussion with someone that just does this for a living on YouTube. Just because someone does it for a living on YouTube does, in my opinion, in a lot of subjects, does not make them inferior to people that have studied it in college. I'm a firm believer that there are people that can teach themselves incredible skills with enough drive and, you know, like focus and energy on it than you would get when, you know, being like quote unquote professionally trained.
We need to expand the peer review right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, the peer review is limited to quote unquote experts say. I'm sorry, that's not going to do it. Like it's social media. We're so connected. We must expand their peer review.
Hell yeah. I just wanted to hit this super chat. Rexy, I love you. More live streams, more Zoom calls, Mikey. Hell yes. I'm starting to do more live streams. I'm going to have at least one next week. One that I've planned, maybe two. Adam, you should totally come on. And yeah, if you guys
and Kathleen Caroline, she didn't say anything, but it's an orange super chat.
I know, I'm gonna get to that. One sec. I was just gonna say, if you guys feel like supporting my channel, subscribe to my locals. We do like Zoom hangouts and fun stuff. I've been a little MIA from there. I'm sorry, but I'm getting back into doing all of this. I love you, Rexy. Kathleen, thank you so much. That's so nice of you. I'm so glad to have you here. This is amazing.
I know. Sorry, I read other people's super chats. I know I shouldn't do it. I drink out of people's glasses too, so it's just a bad habit. So sorry.
You drink out of people's glasses.
I do. It's
are you trying to kill grandma with your breathing fresh air and you're drinking out of glasses?
I know. And the stupid little like, you know, flavor charms around the wine glasses don't fucking work. So
oh no, I have no boundaries. I'm with you.
Yeah, it was definitely, I think it was the event. So the one thing we did too is when COVID happened, everything shut down. But we just said, fuck that. Like the DNC was in Milwaukee and it was this big event supposed to be here. So we were hosting our event during that time. And, you know, obviously DNC canceled in Milwaukee. So like really everything went to shit. But like one of the things we've been proud of is the fact that like we just kept going. We just kept holding the events and stuff. And I think it was the one, I forget which one it was, but Melissa Chen's boyfriend Eric was there, and it was so funny. Like
I love them.
Yeah, I know. You could kind of see it on everyone's face, like because everyone had been segregated for so long, you know, with the pandemic, and like people came back together, and people were just like freaking out. You can tell like the energy, like people were like, "Oh my god, we get to see other people finally," you know.
Yeah.
Especially them coming from New York, and I'll never forget. It was like Eric. He had his mask off. We're like at one of VIP parties, and this was when everyone was talking about mask, whatever. He had his mask off. He's like yelling and screaming. He's like in my face, like yelling because he's so excited. And I'm like, Eric, you're coming from the city that has the worst COVID rates at that point. That was like early on, you know. But it was just funny. He's just like yelling in my face, and he just thought it was funny. But yeah, I think the
he's just like that normally.
Yeah,
I love him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the point is you just got to bring people together. Like people need that, and you kind of saw it in the pandemic. You know, like how depressed people were because we're a social species. Like we have to be around other people, and it's just like it's a truth. So, yeah.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is amazing. I just need to say, have you guys ever seen the movie, the one from like 10 years ago, the movie The Muppets?
No.
The Jason Segel one?
Oh, I tried because I love Segel, but
it was good.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a point though. So that movie is about this little Muppet named Walter who lives amongst humans. And so but the humans don't understand him because he's a Muppet. So he watches the Muppets on TV and is like, oh, if only I could be around them. And then, spoiler alert, he gets to freaking join the Muppets. So I feel like I'm Walter getting to be part of Mythinformed. This is like dream come true. I'm so happy. I'm so proud. April 23rd, you guys have to come. Fly to Texas. Where the hell do you all live that's better than Texas? I'm in New York, so let's all get the hell out of our cities. We'll meet up in Texas. We'll drink, we'll hang out, we'll dance. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you guys so much for being here. I can't wait to see you next month.
Thanks, Mikey. Thanks for having us on.
All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
Bye.